Well, good afternoon. This is Mr. Not Advice and my co-host partner, Mr. Greg Reyes, and we are here today to discuss some post-earnings situations with EOSE, NVX, and I guess we're going to mention Beyond a little bit. But before I turn it over to my co-host, I just want to thank you all. And remember, these are our opinions. These are not meant as advice. This does not indicate we have a long or short position. This is our opinions, and they should be taken at value equal to the paper they're written on. So, Mr. Reyes, how are we doing today, sir?
I'm doing absolutely terrific. I've been super excited to have this call because there's a lot of very interesting things to talk about with Enovix and in particular EOSE.
Awesome, awesome. Let's get into it. What do you want to start with, sir?
Why don't we start with Enovix?
All right.
And so before I get into it, I do want to say this. Um, I'm active, not as active as I used to be on Twitter, and I'd shared some of my musings about how I thought this quarter was going to play out, and it played out pretty much how I expected. Which isn't always the case. But some people said things like, "F you," and you sound like uh, a bear trying to manipulate the stock. And I just want to make one thing clear. In addition to not giving investment advice, I'm just sharing my opinions and my views. And I'm not trying to do anything other than help people learn how to think about companies from the way that I would as a sitting CEO. So I just wanted to put that out there because at the end of the day, people need to just make their own decisions. And if they have a different view, that's great. And if they're right and I'm wrong, I mean, that's just the way the world works. And in this particular case, I saw this one coming out of the gate and waited very patiently, and I did pretty well with it, and things played out pretty much as I expected. And in fact, I think things may be actually much worse
Hmm.
than the untrained eye would see coming off the call. So I just wanted to put that out there. So
Perhaps,
one of
Greg,
the things that I did,
perhaps, Greg, what those Twitter people need is that box of shut the fuck up cakes that I made for the EOS people that were bitching and moaning. So I'm sorry to interrupt,
no,
but
no
I did
problem.
make a couple dozen of those this past week. So, but go ahead, sir. Innovate, or yes,
Well,
please go.
let's just spend a couple more
Okay.
seconds on that point because I think it's an important one. If somebody has an opinion that's principled and thoughtful, which I think mine were. Um, and your visceral reaction is to want to attack them and destroy them. Maybe it means that your thesis is wrong, which, in my opinion, anybody that wants to be successful from an investment standpoint, probably should be able to reassess their assumptions, and if something changes, pivot accordingly. I mean, it's not like I'm attacking someone's, lineage or their mother or their wife. It's just, hey, this is how I see it, and you may see it differently. And if you can come back and say, hey, this is how I'm thinking about it, my reaction might be, oh, geez, I didn't think about that. Thank you. Not that I want to attack you. So, in any event, getting into an UBIC. So, one of the things that I always do, and it has helped me significantly, is I will always go back and look at prior earnings calls in terms of what was said
Mhm.
and overlay that on top of the most recent earnings call. So when I look at Innovix, I'm not just looking at what was said on the call. I'm trying to juxtapose that on top of what was said in prior calls. And going into this call, the lexicon that the company gave investors was, hey, we're sampling the EX1M. We've got two JDAs that are testing the EX1M. If those go well, it is expected that the production ramp will begin in the fall of 2024. I didn't make that up. I pulled that out of the call. And overlaying that on what was said at this recent call it was really, really interesting because there was no bridging from one call to the next, and I'll get into that in more detail. But before I do, I want to talk about the framework going into the call with three press releases that the company put out. The first was they announced that they were doing a buyback of $60 million, which was an instant eyebrow raiser, knowing that they only had 200 million in cash. They're in a capital intensive business. They're talking about scaling. They just raised $100 million a couple quarters ago under the auspices of we need that money to scale and ramp production. And now they're saying they're going to buy back 60 million shares. Then they put out a press release announcing what they called a dividend and was framed as a dividend that was basically a gift to existing shareholders. And then they announced a product that they called the AI1. I had a completely different take on each of those. The first was I didn't think for a second that they were going to be buying back any stock and that the headline was written for the algorithms because typically when a company announces a buyback, it's viewed positively.
Mhm.
So I label it a fake buyback. The second was this quote unquote dividend was no dividend at all. It was really a very clever way to effectuate a short squeeze. And at the end of the day, to the extent that every warrant was exercised, the company would raise about $250 million in incremental cash, in addition to the $100 million that they raised a couple of quarters ago. And my take on the AI one is whenever I did a new product announcement, I always had multiple customer quotes saying, we think that the, new product is fantastic for the following set of reasons, or we're excited to take that product to market. All they said was they have a new AI1 battery, and that, it was available for sampling. And I really view that as a head fake that they talked about in the prior call. They were providing EX1Ms to OEMs for testing, and then they would get feedback, and the feedback was good. They'd start ramping in Q4. And I instantly thought, you know what? I don't think that sampling is going so good. And they got feedback, and they had to do another respin and come out with a rebranded version of the EX1M. So now, fast forward to the call. What Raj said in his opening remarks were, we're super excited about the EX1M. We announced a warrant dividend to fund future growth, and we're sampling to smartphone OEMs and one strategic eyewear company. And we've got strong demand for the the AI1, and it meets all of the smartphone market requirements. So if you peel that back and you believe as I did that the EX1M wasn't cutting it for the customers, that they pivoted and incorporated that feedback and came out with a rebranded battery that they're calling the AI1. But I didn't forget the fact that Raj said that when you provide a new battery, there's a 9 to 12 month qual cycle. So instantly, I believe that he was moving the goalposts 9 to 12 months and that there would be no production ramp in the last half of this year. And I still believe that that's the case. And you think about that, and you think about this company in terms of where it came from when they were marketing that based on a set of assumptions that they were sharing with investors that the $1 billion revenue ramp was going to happen in 2022. Well, now we sit here in 2025, and for all intents and purposes, it's been pushed out, in my opinion, another year. The other thing that kind of jumped out at me is that,
Did you just say another year with a straight face?
yes, sir,
A billion
I did.
in 2026.
I
Do you
well, I
think
didn't
they're
say
gonna
they're
do
going to do a billion in
$1 billion? Oh,
2026.
oh, okay, okay.
I
I was
I
just
I I think that revenue ramp has been pushed out another year
oh, okay. You're
because
saying
it,
that's what ENVX is thinking, not what you're thinking, because you're
no,
not
I'm
telling me
saying they said that Q3 2024 was when the ramp would begin. I
Yes,
don't think the ramp's going to begin until the second
understood.
half of next year.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
It's a little nuanced.
Mhm.
No, no, my pleasure. It's a little nuanced, and there are many nuanced things in this call that I want to
Right.
just wade into for a second. So, at one point, the CEO stated that they signed an agreement for a customer to get and test batteries. Now, he didn't say we signed an agreement, and if the batteries are tested and meet spec, we're going to enter into a supply agreement. I think what he said was that they signed a non-disclosure agreement to ship them samples, right? So it's a little sleight of hand,
Word
a little
salad.
cute by a half. Yes.
It's word salad, which
Um,
you and I talked about a year ago.
right. The next nuance was he said that we've reduced the time to make a battery by 50% from what it used to be.
Okay.
Now, what he didn't say was they went from X to Y, right? In prior calls, they said when the plant was running at 90+% yields, that they'd be able to do 1,350 batteries per hour. So for him to say publicly that they've reduce the time to make a battery by 50%. I don't think he was saying that they're going to be able to go to 2,700 batteries per hour, but it implies that they were far, far short of prior expectations. And he said that they placed orders for certain long lead time pieces of equipment. Okay, so let me fly up to the apex on everything that I've just said and give you my take on it. So my take on it is the EX1M, which was supposed to be the product to begin ramping production, was not even mentioned once in the call. But we heard all about the AI one, which tells me that that product is dead on arrival. Um, we didn't hear anything about the factory being able to produce at its specified rate of 1,350 batteries per hour. Rather, we heard that they've improved by 50%, but he never told you what they improved off of, which tells me that the factory is not operating to spec. And the order that they signed with a customer to provide samples, I don't think is anything more than an NDA, in my opinion. And the other thing that kind of jumped out at me as being odd is they played a video on the call showing the manufacturing line producing batteries. Never in my career have I seen a company play a promotional video on an earnings call. It just didn't sit right with me. Um, and then he went on to say that the reason for the dividend was to raise additional capital to build out the rest of the factory. Well, that was the excuse that they used when they raised the last $100 million. So what happened to that $100 million? So what I think happened to that $100 million is they're burning around 40 plus million a quarter. I think they knew that the EX1M was stillborn. They pivoted and came out with a rebranded version of that incorporated features in terms of energy density and charge cycles that they believe that the customers want. And basically slipped everything out by a year.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with everything you've
Yeah,
said. I think my take on it was when I saw the warrant, it was to me that was a forced capital raise put on shareholders. I've done I was trying to think, I probably 10, 15 deals where I was either involved, we were either the principal or part of the selling group. And if there were warrants involved, we knew that what that was about. That was because the deal wouldn't sell and you needed to increase the upside by fooling retail and thinking they're getting a gift when actually what they're getting is something that they will hold, which will become worthless eventually. So I can tell you that in my experience, and people can do whatever they want to do with their warrants. But in my experience, I would always say to my clients, if you got warrants, we're going to sell them immediately. It's better to have that bird in the hand because that thing's going to die. Additionally, I'm looking at what you just brought up on their burn rate, and I'm like, well, where's their money going to come from? So I was I was sort of pushing you earlier on the 1 billion. I still think this is a significant binary event that if they name a customer upsize, then the revenues and earnings have a way to cover all a multitude of sins. But the soft data, the cash position, the warrant, all of that is tells me that it's a company that, let's put it this way, I have never had a company where they have offered warrants that did not trade significantly lower below $5. They all went below
Mm.
ever. I've never had a company. And then finally, the whole TJ coming on it. I thought that was bush league. I thought it completely diminishes Raj's position and his stature in the investment banking community, because it's sort of like bringing your daddy in. I thought when they walked on the stage, it was immediate. You could immediately see tension, and I thought that everything that TJ added could have been done at a circus, because that's what it felt like. I don't care if the battery can lift a fucking truck. That is not what the battery is made for. Also, I don't know what happened to brake flow. There is one, and why I get pissed, Greg, is probably the same reason you get pissed. Is people are going to get hurt um, if they continue to not at least consider that there is an objective, possible other outcome, that it may not work out. That's it. You know, I don't know. Maybe 5 years down the road, I'm wrong and this thing gets bought out. I don't think so. You know what I think is going to happen, Greg? I think at some point they're going to become quietly transitioned to the the new and improved route Jade, and that's where they're going to get their revenues. And they're going to sell these, well, normal batteries, I suppose. But what do you think? I mean, I look at a stock
I
price now, and I'll tell you this: if the moving average is a 200-day moving average is 955, this thing needs to be above 1050, right? If they are able to break it below that, it is going much lower. And the fact that they allocated 60 million, so they told the shorts exactly how much money they have to defend. Good luck. That's a terrible thing to do. So, and
it,
then you're going to have the
it,
selling that's going to come in just from normal shareholders as the stock continues to drop. It's tough right now, man. I don't want to see
it's
anybody. I'm like you. I don't want to see anybody lose money in this. And I hope I'm wrong. And I hope I wake up tomorrow morning and they've signed a huge contract and the stock's at $20. Then I will be right. What I said 2 years ago, which is I will buy this company once they sign a contract, they name a customer with an order size, and I'm more than happy to pay $20. Here we are, almost 2 years later, and I'll repeat the same thing. Name a customer with an order size. Okay. And I'll pay $20 for it. Right, Greg? Sure. But they don't have a customer and they haven't even order size.
I'll 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 be the first to be piling in along with you.
Yeah.
So on the TJ front,
Yeah.
the thing that really kind of got me, in addition to him kind of showing up and I mean I don't know what his value add was. It was just kind of
It was a mess.
technobabble. But his letter before earnings, where he basically admits that everything they did was to engineer a synthetic short squeeze and talked
Mhm.
about all the evils of shorting stocks. But he never bothered to mention that this is a company that has consistently moved the goalposts, has consistently missed revenue estimates, has consistently missed on technology fit to market. And I just think TJ's kind of focused on the wrong thing, and to roll TJ in and have him, opine about, billion transistor postage stamp AI, uh, integrated circuits that need more power. It's like, okay, but he never bridged it back to what ENVX is doing and how it's a unique building block for making that happen. And the other thing that he said that took my breath away, and this is a mistake that I make a lot. I just my word when I was a CEO was bankable. I used to pride myself in making sure that everything I said, I was confident that I could make happen or exceed. And when
Mhm.
TJ said that, gee, we made some engineering abstractions when we announced break flow, but the cell phone guys don't care. You talk about missing product fit and investors saying, oh, wow, they've got breakthrough. It's truly unique. It solves the thermal runway issue. Customers are going to be lining up and paying a premium because of this. To have them admit that nobody cared, wouldn't you go talk to a customer first before you develop this thing and tout it as being revolutionary and game changing? So I just think the thing is, it's just so sad to see this, and it really is kind of a Keystone Cops ruling. So in summary, I think that the series of announcements in advance of the call were nothing more than a attempt to create a synthetic short squeeze. In the absence of positive incremental information on customers, we kind of got what we got, which was this massive sell-off in the stock. I feel horrible for the people that had positive inferences or saw them when in reality there were none, because a logical person would say, "Oh, gee, like, why would you announce these things if you weren't going to announce a huge customer order?"
Mhm.
Well, that's one way to look at it. The way I looked at it is, what? Why would you announce these things before announcing a large customer order? If you've got a 15% dilutive raise that you're doing, regardless of whether you call it a dividend or not, wouldn't you do that after you announced a large customer and the stock was trading in the 20s? And then it becomes 7% dilutive instead of 15% dilutive. I, I just think people are clinging to hope on top of hope and seeing positive inferences where there are none. People went into that call thinking there was going to be a large customer announcement. There was none. People went into that call thinking there was going to also be an announcement that Meta was using the battery, and there was none. And in fact, Raj was asked the question about them being used in eyewear. And his answer was this convoluted series of run-on sentences that didn't answer the question. And it talked about, future models, and we're providing samples. Well, this company's been providing samples for the last 5 years.
Mhm.
So,
Maybe
I
they
don't
should
know.
be an OEM sample manufacturer. Other
Oh,
OEMs can use them to get through their prototyping and say, I agree with you, Greg. Look, at the end of the day, this stock, if it's not able to hold 1050, um, I mean, where else are they going to raise money? Their burn rate, let's see, I estimated 4 quarters. If they don't name a significant customer, they're going to have 4 quarters where they have to do something that is not 15% dilutive, like massively dilutive in order to stay in business. And a lot of
I
companies do that, right? Where they can stay in business as a stock, right? They can always have a pulse because they're always pushing it out. And there will always be that subset of investors that says, okay, it'll be next quarter, it'll be next quarter, it's next quarter. And all I want to say to you, those investors, are I was a professional advisor for 30 years, and every single investor who had that methodology lost money 100% of the time. So, yes, you could be different. And if you want to do that, that's fine. And if you want to blame people because you don't have the integrity, the self integrity, or the courage to look in the mirror and say, you know what, maybe I should reduce my position size in XYZ, or maybe I should listen to a former CEO and a former advisor that was in the business for 30 years, or I'm going to continue just to drink the Kool-Aid. Look, whatever you do with it, it's your money. But we're not going to sit here and play nicey nice, because our job here, what we take seriously, is we're going to offer our honest opinions. And generally speaking, when we offer honest opinions, we also have skin in the game personally. But we're going to offer honest opinions, and people can do whatever they want with it. But I will tell you this: there is a Discord group that over this week, there are people thanking Mr. Reyes, saying, my gosh, I looked at it objectively. I made a decision. And because of that, it helped protect capital. I mean, wow, what a terrible thing. So it is beyond me, Greg, why anybody, number one, why anybody would execute their warrants at this stage, like today. Why you would give this company any more money is beyond me. It is also beyond me if I was an advisor, and I'm not giving advice here. I'm giving you my opinion. Why anybody hold those warrants? It's a gift. Take it. You just reduced your basis. If you're going to hold it long term, if I was holding this thing long term, I'd say, great. I'll take the warrants, reduce my basis. Okay. gives me a reason to hold it longer term. At least I get that, you know? But this thing breaks $10 and trades below it. I'm so sorry, but it's going to go to $8 very quickly. This is the invest community is not happy. That's the other thing I heard on the call, Greg, where it was I heard almost like giving up by the investing community. There weren't they tried. They tried a couple questions. It's almost like they're giving up. I mean,
Well,
that entire call was a clown show.
well, they never great gave a straight answer to any question. And one of the things that, and I said at the beginning of our podcast that I think things could in fact be much worse. And what you just said highlighted it. So they're burning 42 million in cash. They got 200 million. That gets them to, you know, Q3 of next year. I think they were hoping with this warrant stunt to pull in another 250. They pulled in 34 because smart people quickly exercised them and sold them. And if this stock drops much lower, below 1050, they're not going to get any of that capital. And then the reason that I personally believe that there's a reasonable likelihood that not only has this slipped 12 months, but potentially more. And some guy was trying to get into it on Twitter with me saying, oh, you said that things are going to slip a year, and they've got a customer ramping up in Q4, and they don't. There was no mention of the EX1, and specifically on the call, Raj was asked about the revenue ramp, and his question was, yes, thank you for that question. I think, as I mentioned, we are sampling our AI1 battery now to multiple customers, and particularly in the smartphone space, is where we expect our first products to launch using our battery. Well, if he was being truthful, which I have no reason to believe that he wasn't, when he said the qual cycle is 9 to 12 months, the best case for this starting to ramp will be in mid next year. Now, what if it doesn't? What if there's a slip? What if the customer, says, "Hey, we're just not comfortable that it has the advantage that we had hoped for." They're going to be in a world of hurt from a cash standpoint. And it's really sad because I loved the initial ENVX story back in 2021. It checked all of my success filter boxes. They had TJ Rogers and his patina, which I think has worn off. They had an industry icon in Raj who took the job, and you would have assumed that he did due diligence. Well, here we are going on 3 years later, and it just isn't happening. So in any event,
Well,
I
I'll
hope
I'll
that
close this
that
out on NFX like this, Greg. There's a great, there's a wonderful historical character that every young man should learn about named Ron Swanson. And Mr. Swanson from Parks and Rec says to a Home Depot employee, I know more than you do. And I will say this, generally speaking, when it comes to warrants and stocks and how they trade, I know more than you do. There's a reason why I was in the business 30 years. That is a statement of
Mhm.
fact. And I'm sorry. In the area of being a CEO, Greg knows more than you do. So perhaps, and I want to share this, there is a Discord member who is also a CEO in a different industry who said in publicly in our Discord said, and a thank you to you, Mr. Reyes, and said, "Hey, I listened to you. I listened to the boss. I looked at my own position, and because I made my own decision, you just saved me a lot of money. Amazing! We protected capital. He can still go in. Here's the great thing: he protected capital now, Greg, because he was able to look beyond what he wanted to happen, listen to what you said, your opinion, my opinion, and he made his own decision. Okay, and God bless him. He did the right thing. He protected capital. And here's the thing, people, you, there's always another opportunity. I mean, I'm the idiot who said 2 years ago, and I said, hey, if they hit this is going to be $100 in 10 months because I really believed in the technology and I believed in what they were saying. Well, look, you have to change your point of view based on the incoming data. So I really want to is the Twitterati that are out there. 99% of Greg, I don't even know what they're talking about because they get blocked so quickly. And secondly, I'll tell you that for as much, and this is I'll do a not professional segue. for as much as I am pounding the table on NFX and saying, my gosh, the writing has been on the wall and it's got even worse. I'm also saying on EOSC, what do people want? I mean, the company, the soft data, the hard data, people were asking me, what about your $15 price target? Look, yeah, they've got to do what they said they're going to do. But with this adding the subassembly, the revenue targets can be hit. Um, Nathan says, orders announcements soon. The stock price is reacting actually excellent. Let's not forget, people. We are back at slightly above the price level when EOSE lost their CFO. Company stock prices usually don't recover like that. Then you get the other two, so it's a trifecta of bad news. And yet here we are. So I don't know what your opinion is. I'd love to hear your comments, your takeaways on the call, and just generally about EOS. But I'm bullish. It's one of my largest positions, and everyone on Twitter who follows me knows that I traded in and out of it. But I've got leaps out to 27. I've got September calls. I've got January 26 calls. And I still have, I mean, my goal is to get up to between 18 and 20% of my total portfolios. I'm at 13 and holding, I'm waiting. I'm just waiting right now to get a good entry. But I'm bullish. I think that what could delay it, and I said this to the members prior to the conference call. I said I think everyone's getting too excited. We may have a 3 month delay or somewhere until new orders come, until we see that hockey stick. We only have two data points, 2 quarters now. We need a third quarter or an estimation of a third data point that will create that hockey stick curve where investment banks and analysts will start straight line extrapolating, and that's where you're going to start seeing this stock start to aggressively move. But quite frankly, I think the only thing that can delay it is if they have some sort of operational delay. I don't think there's concern from the big beautiful bill, from the repeal of the Green Deal shit. I don't think that's going to happen. So a lot of the concerns, and I want to say this, that everyone was worried about. Mr. Reyes and I talked about this stock a year ago when it was at its lows, and we were pounding the table on it because of Cerberus involvement. Then we were pounding the table on the fact that why the hell is everyone worrying about the DOE loan, right? That turned out to be correct. Look, Mr. Reyes and I don't have inside information, and we wouldn't trade on it. But I'll tell you this: when you see a rhythm develop in a stock in their news flow, right? And that's what we're picking up. That's what I'm picking up on, and what makes me so bullish on the stock. But I'm not straight line extrapolating. I've said before I'll continue to trade it, but man, this company's exciting. So that's my overview commentary on EOSC, and I'll turn it over to you, sir.
Well, so I think that you hit on the majority of the highlights. But I do want to again start at the 50,000 foot level and kind of get into the specifics. So I think going into the call, and my only criticism of the call is they didn't do the call the same day that they announced the earnings. So I think people were looking for two things. They were looking for a customer announcement, and they were looking for revenue north of $20 million because the CEO had said back in April that they'd done, you know,
Mhm.
more in April than they did in the prior quarter, which was around $10 million. Didn't get that. The stock just collapsed after hours. And then what happened on the call? Well, what happened on the call is that we learned two really important things. One was that there had been a pause in buying for customers waiting to see how the big, beautiful bill would play out from a tax standpoint. And the other thing we learned was that they would have done north of $20 million had they not shipped a number of cubes to a strategic customer at a lower price point. And once that became known, the stock started to recover, and I think it's continuing to do well. And let me just wade into it. So in Joe's prepared remarks, he said a couple things that really jumped out at me, and I think the difference between ENVX and EOS, it's like a tale of two. conference calls. One that I would give an F, and one that I would give, A minus, B plus. So Joe said that 50% of the pipeline is standalone energy storage. Why is that important? Because it means that it does not require the same level of permitting that integrated storage does. So, that's very positive. The second is that they had a 122% increase in improvement in manufacturing without the deployment of the high volume subassembly line. So I'm thinking, wow, they're improving, and we know what baseline they're improving off of. They said they ordered their second line. They didn't say that they bought long lead time items to position themselves to order it. They said they ordered it. So they legitimately ordered a second line. They didn't say that they ordered long lead time components to be ready when they do place the order for a second line. They said they ordered it. Um, and then Joe said that there was a pause as customers wanted to understand how the big beautiful bill, he called it the OBB, would play out. So that was how he teed things up. And then he said that now they're seeing an acceleration from customers. He's saying that hyperscalers and developers are now coming to EOS, right? So the call just kind of got better and better. And then he said that they're seeing a 98.5 round trip efficiency on their batteries, which is incorporating charge discharge cycles. That, based on my understanding, talking to some industry experts, is in fact significantly better, like 5 to 9 percentage points better than lithium ion. And then he wrapped his comments up that customers are understanding the EOS value proposition. So there was a lot to make a meal of there. So kind of moving forward with Nathan's comments, again, all I did was go through the transcript and just think about what they were saying and then why they were saying it. They said they're gaining momentum. Joe said it. Nathan said it. He talked specifically about the features of the big beautiful bill, all of which line up to give EOS a significant tailwind. The 45X production tax credit is untouched. The US content provision is a huge hurdle for virtually every other battery supplier other than EOS. Uh, he talked about the pipeline increasing 21% quarter over quarter. So the pipeline's increased by 3 billion in customer opportunities. He reiterated the 50% improvement in 50% backlog being associated with standalone projects, which imply to me faster deployment in terms of time to commissioning. And then he said, we're finalizing contract terms with our first 10-hour project with a well known hyperscaler. So they've got additional hyperscalers in play. And they talked about in an earlier call how they provide a 30% cost advantage by being able to do peak shaving and reduce the cost of energy for a hyperscaler, which, by the way, people talk about it and it's implied, but I'll say it out loud. An AI data center takes as much as 10 times the energy and electricity of a traditional cloud-based data center. So being able to go in and help the hyperscaler understand how they can reduce their energy costs dramatically is a huge deal. And then Nathan went on to talk about, the Puerto Rican opportunity. They said they were waiting for a uh, regulatory approval to get that to convert from an MOU to an order. And then he went on to say that they've seen a significant increase in the number of opportunities that they've seen in Puerto Rico. So you look at it, we understand the pause. That is why we didn't see a large customer order announcement. We understand the strategic customer deployment. We know why revenue came up short. And then after the call, the stock ripped. But more importantly, as we look out into the future, what are some of the triggers that we could see? Well, if they announce a hyperscaler order, I think that this stock could be off to the races. And they explained how they were going to be able to maintain their guidance. And Joe gave a very fulsome explanation in terms of how he believes they can achieve their 50 to 100 or 150 to 190 million dollar guidance. So from my standpoint, I had it. there was some moron on Twitter, who some of you may know who I'm talking about, who was implying that, oh, I dumped my position before the call because I got inside information. That's bullshit. The only inside information I've got is between my ears. It's called my brain. And I'm looking at this stuff, and I went and added another 500,000 shares notionally to my already massive position. So I'm as excited about this as I've ever been, because I go back to my bull thesis, and I make sure that it remains intact. And like you said earlier, not only is it intact, it's gotten better as we've gone forward. So I'm really excited about EOS, and I think that your $15 price target, I think, is still in play. And I think that there's also a reasonable opportunity that we could see that double again going out, exiting next year. So I've got a much larger position than I should have. I haven't gotten inside information. Nobody's tipped me. I'm just, using my brain. I'm a free thinker and a critical thinker, and I'm pretty damn excited about this one. And I'm looking to add on dips. And as it relates to ENVX, if the thing has a dead cat bounce, I'm looking to reshort. And I made almost seven figures with my short that I put on, and I told people when I did. So I'm pretty excited about EOS.
Well, here's the funny thing. If people talk about, oh, yeah, I have inside information. Let me share with everyone. Having been in the industry for 30 years, and Greg was under this different type, but same level of scrutiny by regulators. If I had inside information, the last thing I'd be freaking doing is talking about it on a podcast or be on Twitter. I
It's
mean,
just ridiculous. It's just
that's just
crazy making.
stupid. People don't do that shit. If you have inside information, you don't talk about it. That's why it's called inside. You don't let it go outside. So, I Twitter, I have a love-hate relationship. I hate Twitter. But a lot of the members, new people that come to my Discord, come from Twitter. Why? Because they want to get away from the crazy people. They want a place where they can just share their opinion. But I I I welcome the day when I can drop off of Twitter, because it's mostly just a bunch of monkeys on there throwing shit at one another. And the people that get celebrated, look what gets celebrated on Twitter. And that will segue into Beyond, because I don't, for the life of me, I don't know what the hell that company does. But there's a lot of hate. There was a lot of hate until I guess the board, somebody talked to Mr. Lamonis, told him to stop talking to me on Twitter. But at the end of the day, who cares? I'm a complete stranger. I have a whopping 2,000 followers, and anyway, if I was trying to drive Beyond stock down, I have much better ways to do that. I mean, this is stupid. So Beyond, Greg, I don't understand their business. I don't know. I think should I be waiting for their announcement that they're going to become an Ethereum treasury company? Is that what's next? Because I really don't fucking know what they do. Like, do they sell shit online? What do they do?
Well, I'm not so sure that they know what they do either at this point. I
Okay.
mean, I I don't want to spend too much time on it, because I got better things to do with my time. But since I've been subjected to a parade of horribles for having the audacity to share my opinion, which by the way turned out to be right. I'll spend a couple minutes on it. So, this is a company that used to be Overstock.com. They started out selling product that they would buy at a discount because companies were overstocked, and that's how this thing launched by Patrick Byrne. And then they had an issue with Patrick, and he got bounced out, and they stuck in their CEO Jonathan Johnson, who was a lawyer, and people thought that he was a genius, when in reality they were just benefiting from the whole COVID craze, and the stock rallied. And then he made a catastrophic mistake. He bought Bed Bath and Beyond, and he basically turned off the Overstock sales engine and tried to pivot to Beyond. And being a lawyer, he had no idea what he was doing. And then the stock cratered, and he ended up getting bounced out. And then this guy Lamonis comes in. He's the fixer. He's a water walker, and he was going to figure it all out. And he came out, and he had guidance of $1 billion in 2024 and 2 billion in 2025. And then 30 days later, he walked that back. And then here we are. The stock kind of traded down into the low threes. They were burning cash. And then we saw an interesting thing happen. We saw a pivot to focusing on the value of grain chain and T zero. And If I look at this company, my question is, why don't you just shut down Bed Bath and Beyond? You only got 147 million in cash. I think you burned 30 million last quarter. The home
Greg, they
furnishings.
lowered the SKU count though. Don't you remember that last quarter? That was a big
Well,
deal.
that
They
was part
lowered the
of
SKU count.
Marcus's. Well, that's part of his operating secret sauce. He got rid of non-profitable SKUs and took a victory lap. I'm like, seriously? That's like the kid.
Oh, sorry.
You know, you,
The SKU
did you
count.
just
I
snort
saw that, I'm
laughing?
like,
Was that funny that you just
yeah, I
started
did.
snorting?
I'm sorry. The SKU count, man. I was like, oh man, that's a good one.
Oh, so so
Sorry.
so I I
No,
I I don't know. I mean, I think the only yellow flag economically at the moment is what's going to happen in the housing market. Well, if we see the housing market slow down, which it is, I don't think it's a great harbinger of things to come for beyond selling home furnishings. And then you got Grain Chain and T Zero. One of their biggest promoters now has pivoted to attack the T Zero CEO, this guy David Goon, and I think the reality is that they don't. I don't know that they have a seat at the table with the tokenization stuff and crypto stuff going on in Washington, and those that
so
thought that
far
they
they
were going to dominate
yeah.
the industry.
Yeah, so far they
Go
don't.
ahead.
Sorry to interrupt you, Greg. So far they don't. I was reading, I have a position in but you all remember, I'm a swing trader. So we opened a short and beyond last week, 2 day trading days ago. We just scaled for plus 60%. I have no joy for people to lose money and beyond. I want people to make money. I honestly don't know what they do. And from 30 years of experience, I had a number one pick for 2025 to go up. That was EOSE. And I had a number one pick to go down. That was Beyond. And I still think Beyond is going to, at minimum, end the year below $5. Um, I don't understand what they do. And they have been left out of the T Zero and all of the crypto talks. I honestly think that they should actually pivot to become an Ethereum treasury company. I think their stock would probably rally on that. Because otherwise, even if the housing market, if Trump's able to stimulate the housing market, and by the way, he's doing a hell of a job. But even if he's able to somehow sidestep the landmines that have been put in place, how does Beyond profit? Because look at their website, Bed Bath and Beyond. I mean,
No,
Overstock. I don't get it. I don't understand what they're doing, nor do I understand why they've gone radio silent. They were talking about the T Zero thing and nothing. We haven't heard anything. So
yeah, I
we
think
just I have Discord members who own it. I'm not celebrating it in any ways, shape, or fashion. I don't want people to lose money. And full disclosure, I opened a short last week, but so what? It is for me. It is if you can't tell what a company's business does, Greg, I think that should be a major red flag.
yeah, it's really sad, and I mean, I guess I'm going to give some advice, even though we're not giving advice. My advice is if you're making an investment because some self-proclaimed best short seller that ever lived says, don't bet against Marcus Lemonis. I mean, you really should go read some investment books or look beyond that. Forgive the beyond pun, but I just think it's a tragedy. It's an absolute tragedy.
Well, before we finish up, one final comment about what's going on with Mr. Trump. By the way, everyone who said that tariffs would be inflationary, no. And everyone who thought that he would fail, no. And so, yeah, he might thread the needle here, Greg, and he may enter in. I mean, this could be phenomenal for our economy. I don't know how you feel, but I've been excited. I'm excited about EOSC. Um, I've been watching PCT. Made money all the way up. Wimped out on the turn. We took profits at the top and didn't take the short, but I'm excited about PCT. But if any of you, I was asking Greg before the call, if any of you have got companies that you are looking at, one of the things we're going to do this fall, Greg's schedule is just jammed right now, but we're going to do a podcast on Greg's success filters that he uses as he ponders and considers possible investments for himself and for family office. So we're going to do that. But if you have ideas, send them in. I mean, email me. You can email me at theboss@mrnotadvice.com. Please email them in. Follow each of us on Twitter. I'm at Mr. Not Advice. Greg, why don't you share your info and take us out? And that'd be awesome.
Yeah, I'm whenever I say super excited, I chuckle because Raj says that a lot on the calls. I'm really looking forward to the opportunity to share my success filter in terms of how I think about companies. And when I really started to kind of gain momentum from an investing standpoint, it's when I use the same filter for my investment ideas that I use when I identified my company Brocade, and you know looked at 200 companies that had open CEO positions during the dot-com period. Identified Brocade. Took me 27 interviews to get the job because it checked all the boxes. And 2 years later, I was worth $1 billion on paper. And I try to use that same filter when I'm looking at companies, like EOS or ENVX. I'm looking forward to getting that laid out and sharing it with folks in terms of a way to think about investing, which is different than trading, investing in companies. And that should be a lot of fun. And I think once people have that, if they see something that looks interesting, I'm more than happy to spend some time wading into it. But I don't have enough bandwidth to look at, so and so said this is a
Mhm.
hot sector or that hot sector. I'd like to see something where somebody says, "Hey, I went through the success filter, and here's how it checks all the boxes," and would love to get your thoughts on it as well. But I'm looking forward to our next call, and if you don't hear from me, and I assume the same is true for Mr. Not Advice as it relates to, nonstop tweeting. We'll tweet when we've got something that's constructive to share, or at least I will. And I look forward to our next podcast. I hate to keep saying super excited. I was super excited to do this call, and I hope that people got something out of it.
Well, thank you very much, Greg, for being my co-host and partner. And listeners, again, Greg's on Twitter. I'm on Twitter. Feel free to reach out to us. We both have a zero tolerance for idiots, but we love to have intelligent discussions with people. So please, be more than the normal distribution and reach out and have intelligent conversation. So thank you so much, Greg. I hope you have an awesome day. And thank you, listeners. And we'll look forward to meeting with you all next time.
All right, boss. Take care. Have a great day.